The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is Monday, the 14th of April, 2025, and we have a very important story, a show for you today. So this is Pete Hildebrand. He is Daisy's father. Daisy's the second child that the mainstream media continually say died from measles. She did not, and nor did Kaylee, the other little girl, age 6, that they say died from measles. So there's a couple of important things to say here. They continually do this, put out this fear-mongering press saying that these two little girls died from measles. It's really important that we share these stories and counteract what the mainstream media is saying, because it's so dangerous. Parents are living in fear. They're running out in the mummy groups. They're talking about how can they get their little 6-month-old baby a MMR. You've got so-called professionals going out in the press, Hotez and Peter Marks and people like that, going out saying that the MMR is safe and effective. It's one of the safest vaccines we've had, is what they're saying. It is not safe and effective. It is extremely dangerous. The amount of autism caused by the MMR, the amount of stories that we've done about the MMR, the death from the MMR is just enormous. So it is our job to continually get the truth. And we are so grateful to Daisy's parents and to Kaylee's parents for coming out in their terrible time of grief and talking about the truth of what happened to their little girls. So we do know also from these stories, very similar like the COVID stories, they're killing these children in these hospitals, medical error, whatever you want to call it. These children have been given terrible treatments that is killing them. As Dr. Suzanne, Dr. Ben Edwards, Brian Hooker, Pierre Corey have said, these children should be alive today. They should not have died. And each one of those doctors with high qualifications saying that these girls absolutely categorically did not die any stretch of the imagination from measles. So the best thing that we can do is to keep sharing these stories, and Lou's got these stories separated on CHD TV, so you can just share them out so we can keep, this is straight from the parents' mouths of what happened to their children. We all know that we can trust the parents because we've seen so many stories of injury and death. So we must make sure that this stops, and please be careful about going to hospital with your children. Armor yourselves up with lawyers and know your rights before you go in there with your children, because this has to stop. So what we're going to do today is we're going to show you this story that we pre-recorded with Pete Hildebrand, and after that we've got 2 more stories for you. We've got Kristine Nelson. She's talking about her son who was injured by a vaccine, and she has a home unvax study for you to have a look at that. Nothing in my mind is better than the parents that vaccinated their children and then stopped vaccinating their children. The same environment. That is your true unvax study. So we've got that story, and then we've got another one. We've got Nicole and her son Brandon for you. So we will keep pumping out these stories, and you, the people, are the people that are going to win this, because it's us. We've lived it. There's don't matter how many qualifications you've got or letters after your name, there's nothing better than first-hand experience. So we took our children to get vaccinated with untold damage, and we will keep speaking out about what happened to our children until this stops. It has to stop. And so I want to thank all our viewers for being so loyal to us and supporting us, keeping us going in every single way, shape and form, and for sharing these stories, because that's how we're going to win it. So I'm now going to hand over to, well, actually, Brian Hooker and I did this interview together. And so this is what's going to happen now. So pray big, my friends. Stand firm, never settle. And here's Pete Hildebrand for you. Okay, well, hello, everybody. I'm here with Dr. Brian Hooker, our Chief Scientific Officer at Children's Health Defense, and we are about to interview Peter Hildebrand. Peter is the father of Daisy, who the media consistently say died from measles. And so we are here to hear from ourselves the truth about what really happened to Daisy. So we welcome onto the show Peter Hildebrand. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Peter, how many children do you have?
Now it's two. We had three.
And was Daisy the eldest child?
She was the oldest.
At 8 years old.
Almost 9, 8 years and 7 months.
Can you describe to everybody the type of girl that Daisy was before she got sick?
She was always happy. Even when she was sick, she tried to always be happy the best she could, you know. Always very active, and she was always worried about others too. Very beautiful, very sweet little girl. I don't know why it has to have to come to this, but here we are.
Was before Daisy got sick, when we started going to hospital, as a child growing up to her 8 years of age, was she a sickly child or was she generally a healthy child?
No, for the most part, she was healthy unless flu season and stuff. Of course, she would get sick from time to time, but overall, she was a very healthy girl.
And she was not vaccinated at all for anything?
No, none of my kids are.
So when did Daisy start to get sick? It was like a month or so before she passed away. So talk us through the timeline of when she first got sick.
I had a trip planned to Mexico, right? And she already started getting sick with her tonsils, and she had been like that for, I think, a week or two. And then we were going to leave her at my parents' just because that trip was kind of important to me, and she wasn't extremely sick yet. We were going to leave her at my parents', but she said, no, I want to go on that trip. So we ended up taking her, but boy, did I regret ever taking that trip, just because in Mexico, she started getting real sore eyes, like they were real red and stuff like that. And then we came back home, and from there, we stayed home and until her breathing started getting bad, and we went and picked up the oxygen machine and did what we could at home until we just absolutely had to go in. So we went to Covenant, and then they released us from there, went back home, stayed home for a couple of nights, and then from there we ended up having to go to UMC because we figured since Covenant hadn't helped. So we went to UMC, and then we ended up going home from there, and then it just got worse again. So we went to Dr. Phil Claybrook in Midland, Texas. Dr. Phil Claybrook told us to go to the ER ASAP just because she needed some higher technology. They put the regular oxygen on her. Then that wasn't enough anymore. And then instead of putting the high flow oxygen on her, they just went straight to the high pressure mask. And I still to this day don't know why. Because that first UMC visit, they put high flow oxygen on her, and that seemed to work all right. But this time they went straight to the high pressure mask, and then like that for a while, and then they intubated her, and it just kept going downhill and downhill until her oxygen started dropping, and she died that night.
Did you think, as her father, that she had measles at any point?
The first UMC visit, they tested her positive for measles. They released us right away, and I still think they shouldn't have released us from Covenant or UMC the first visit. They released us the day they found out that she tested positive for measles, and I still think it's because of that.
Just backing up, when you were doing oxygen therapy, you took her to Seminole Hospital or the Seminole Clinic there before, right?
Yes, before we ever went to Covenant.
So you went to Seminole, and what was she diagnosed with there? Do you remember what her
She was
diagnosis
diagnosed
was?
with strep, also mono. The doctor gave her a steroid shot. It just started going downhill from there, and that's when we had to go to Covenant.
She did come down with thrush at that point. I believe that, and then how much later, after your visit from Seminole, did you end up taking her to Covenant in Lubbock?
About a week.
She declined pretty quickly then, before you took her to Covenant.
Yes, and then at Covenant, they released us saying that she still had somewhat of a pneumonia, something we could treat at home, and that was kind of weird to me. I mean, we went to the hospital to get her treated so she would be better.
And when they admitted her, they put her on two different antibiotics, and the diagnosis was community-acquired pneumonia. When she was released from the hospital from Covenant, did they continue the antibiotics and the steroids? What type of therapies did they continue? Do you remember?
Nothing that I know of. Nothing. They didn't give us nothing to take home. No, nothing. Just went home by ourselves, and we tried natural treatments.
They didn't give you an antibiotic. It sounds like from what you said, she still had pneumonia.
Yeah, she still had pneumonia, and they didn't give her any antibiotics to take home.
She was declining, and it makes sense because you weren't treating the pneumonia. When you took her into UMC the first time, did they put her in ICU right away, or was she in the main pediatrics ward first?
Straight to the ICU.
I do believe that they administered antibiotics at that point in time for her pneumonia. And did they do anything else in ICU? Was she getting breathing treatments or?
Epidural breathing treatments. We kept asking for the
right.
But they wouldn't give her the budesonide. They just kept saying that the other breathing treatment was better, and I didn't believe it. But the breathing treatment and some antibiotics.
You went to Dr. Claybrook in Lubbock, and then how long after that did he send you back to University Medical Center?
After one night at home.
Okay, so it was fairly quick then that she wasn't getting better. She wasn't progressing, so you took her back to University Medical Center. Based on Dr. Pierre Corey's assessment, she had acquired a pneumonia from her first hospital visit at UMC in the ICU. It looked like she acquired a type of pneumonia there. When you went to UMC the second time, what did they say when you went to the ER?
When we went to the ER, they didn't say much. They did remember Daisy. They came in there with their plastic robes and whatnot, and I just kind of looked at them weird, you know. I was like, man, that y'all treating my daughter like this. And right away, the one doctor was like, oh, we got to do this just because of precaution, because of her having measles and this and that. They started doing antibiotics right there in the ER. Daisy started asking for something to drink and something to eat. So I went to go get her something to drink, and then shortly after, she asked for something to eat. So I was going to go get something to eat, and then by that time, they had called a security guard. They wouldn't let me leave the building, and they said if I would leave the building, I couldn't get back in.
Soon after that, they stopped the antibiotic. Do you think that was an appropriate call based on the fact that she had pneumonia, or did she start to get worse after they stopped the antibiotic, in your opinion?
Yeah, she started getting worse after they stopped the antibiotic. We tried to tell them, but at the same time, you didn't want to try to tell the doctors what to do because it seemed like they got mad real quick. So we were just sitting there hoping for the best, but in my opinion, that was not the right call.
They did not test her for the type of bacteria that was growing in her lungs until 2 days before she died. They did start antibiotic, but the antibiotic was inappropriate for what was called hospital-acquired pneumonia. Was there a point where she started to go downhill more quickly, or was it gradually declining?
She was gradually declining after I put the high-pressure mask on her. All of a sudden, the doctor says that her lungs started leaking air just because of high pressure mask. And we didn't know what else to do but get her intubated, you know. That last doctor we had, he just kept going on and on about measles this and measles that. He was trying to blame everything on the measles. And that test that you're saying that didn't come back until the day she died, that's why it probably didn't come back, because they were so focused on the measles. They didn't think about testing for anything else. And that is why my daughter is dead today.
They did not test her for the proper antibiotics until April 3rd, which is the day that she died. And they would have known the proper antibiotics, unfortunately, if they would have done that test when she hit the ER, which was about 7 days earlier. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Peter, how was Daisy doing in hospital? Was she talking to you a lot, and you and your wife chatting to you, or was she out of it?
Well, after she got the high pressure mask, she tried not to talk that much, just because she knew that we couldn't hardly understand her. But when they would bring us food inside the room, she would keep pointing at the food and then at her mouth like she was hungry. And that was very hard to watch. That when your child has to sit there and ask for food and you got to tell them no, that is very hard.
Was she scared with all the people in their hazmat suits and the way that you were being treated? If you if you go out, you can't come in. Did she have fear on her face?
Every time there would be more than one nurse or whatever coming in there with the plastic robes and whatnot, she started getting scared, and then her oxygen started dropping and her breathing got more rapidly.
Hmm.
And that's what I told the doctor and the nurses on the first visit. I told them, we don't need 3 nurses storming in here every single time y'all come in here. I said 1 nurse is enough unless you need help with something, but y'all don't need to come storming in here every single time with 3 nurses. It's scaring her.
And the medical records consistently talk about how Daisy was unvaccinated the whole way through. Did they verbally talk to you about the fact that she was unvaccinated?
They've asked us plenty of times if she was vaccinated.
So in every hospital visit, at Covenant Children's as well as UMC, they were asking about her vaccination status.
Yes.
So when she was ventilated, were you and your wife there? How long was it by the time they ventilated her for her passing? What is that length of time?
Right before they put her on the ventilator, when we left the room, she opened up her eyes real wide and looked at us as we left the room. And I know for a fact that she was scared. Had I known it was going to turn out that way, I would have never left the room. We were hoping for the best, so we let the doctors do what they needed to do or what we thought they needed to do, and apparently that wasn't it.
Were you and your wife with her when she passed away?
Yes.
No parent should go through that.
No.
It was very hard.
Peter, do you and your wife believe that Daisy died from measles?
No, absolutely not.
So how do you feel when you see the press pretty much worldwide saying that Daisy died from measles?
That hurts. It hurts very much, and that's exactly why I'm doing this interview, so hopefully people can understand that she did not die off of measles. I feel that if they would have cared the way they should, that my daughter would still be here and I wouldn't have to be on an interview right now about her. Every single time I think about all that, I just get so angry. It's unexplainable.
If a parent's watching this now, because apparently measles is everywhere, or pneumonia, or you've got a child that's got problem breathing, what is your warning to these parents when they think they've got to go to hospital or they have to go to hospital?
It don't matter whether the hospital takes your insurance or not. Just make sure you go to a hospital that takes care of the people. Because when they don't take care of the people, they just end up dying, just like in Lubbock, Texas.
What do you say to the media who are consistently reporting that Daisy was a measles death?
It's not right. Neither is it right for the left-wing media to be out there spreading these lies just to make a penny or a buck. That's all they're doing.
Peter, we're so sorry. We're so sorry for your loss. You've been in Seminole, Texas. You've seen so many kids with the measles. You've seen your own kids with the measles. How are those kids doing, in comparison?
I mean, everybody else that I know of that has had the measles is completely fine. My brother-in-law had the measles.
Right.
My brother-in-law, my nephew David's dad, he had the measles and he's completely fine. And their little newborn had the measles. He's fine. And some of the family members got the measles and some didn't. I'm not scared of the measles. I don't care if there's a kid that has measles. I'm going to go give him a hug or a kiss or whatever. I'm just not scared of it. Because the measles don't kill people. These foolish doctors are the ones that kill people. And I'm not speaking bad about all the doctors, but I am speaking bad about the ones that were so foolish on Daisy's care. I still don't see the daylight of tomorrow, and I don't know that I ever will. Now, if I could have taken Daisy's place, I would have 50 times in a row. Don't get me wrong. But it wasn't possible. I even prayed to God about it, but I guess it wasn't my time, right? She was such a sweet girl. Like I said earlier, she was always happy, always playing. Her and Jordan would always be outside playing. She always cared about other kids too, It's going to be hard moving forward. I know that for sure, but I guess that's our only option we got.
Just to clear this up, do you and your wife have any regrets about not giving the MMR to Daisy or any of your children?
Absolutely not. And from here on out, if I have any other kids in the future, they're not going to be vaccinated at all.
Peter, I want you and your wife to know that people around the world are praying for your family, and our movement know the truth about what happened to Daisy. So I hope you're feeling the love and the prayers. And we just want to thank you and your wife for being so brave and talking about Daisy's story, because this for sure is going to educate and save lives. There's no doubt. It's right.
This will save lives.
These doctors' foolishness in Lubbock are the reason why Daisy had to go to heaven so early. And she was way too young. Way too young. And a parent should not have to bury their kids. Their kids should have to bury their parents. I never expected to go through something like this, and I hope nobody else ever has to. I mean, obviously I can't stop it, but it's very heartbreaking.
My husband and I never had a conversation about vaccines. Both of us were born in the 60s, so we both had 4 or 5 vaccines, probably a booster shot going into kindergarten. I had a very healthy pregnancy. I didn't know what to expect. I was a young mother. It was 1994. I was pregnant in September 93 through March of 94.
And did you have any problems during that pregnancy?
I did not have any problems whatsoever. I believed in natural childbirth. I went to classes for natural childbirth. My father's an organic farmer, so I was focused on health. I was a collegiate D1 athlete, so I really cared about my health. I worked out, lifted weights all the way through my pregnancy, and I gave birth all naturally. He was born in 3 hours. The only minor change was that he was posterior, but I still did it naturally. I don't think that should have affected anything.
So when he was born, what did you think when you looked at your child? Did you think, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with him? Or did you think he was perfect?
Oh, he was perfect. There was nothing. I mean, I didn't have an epidural. I gave birth to him in a all natural way. He was born at 12:14, just after midnight on March 29th. Very healthy little baby boy. I loved him. Love him. I love him.
So tell us, when did he get his first vaccination?
I pulled his vaccination record just for this. I have it here. And
read it out to us.
Yeah, he had his first vaccine at his 2-month visit. And it was July 29th of 94. And he was born March 29th. And he had a DTP. He had oral polio. He had a hepatitis B, which we can discuss in a little bit. And he had a Haemophilus influenza. And actually on 4 of 19, so just 3 weeks old, he had a hepatitis B. I misspoke. So all those others were July of 94, but the hepatitis B was April 19th of 94.
And when did you see a decline in your son?
So he went through, I really studied this so I can share accurately for this interview. He whined and made what I would consider abnormal noises in the summertime after that series of vaccines at the end of July. But after 17 doses of vaccines at age 19 months, he got his first MMR. And that is when I saw him regress. And that's where I can share his regression and the things that we went through beginning at 19 months.
Yeah, please do talk us through what happened.
So he got the first MMR, and we noticed lots of sensory motor changes, extreme sensitivity to sound. Over the course of the next 6 months, he began to just throw tantrums. And keep in mind, this is a kid who sat up at 5 months, gurgled, made all his milestones. By the way, I'm a reading specialist and a 32-year veteran teacher and a coach. So I understand children. And he walked at a normal age. I think it was 13 months. Babbled, spoke, smiled, made eye contact, and then that began to change. So it didn't change overnight, but by the time he was 2, we knew something was wrong with his speech. We had to really help him focus on using words, or using, we would say, use your words. And we had taught him to sign a little bit. He was definitely moving backwards.
Did you give him any more vaccinations after that MMR?
Yeah, 12/17/98, the last vaccine. So he had a second MMR on 12/17/98, and he had a DPT at that visit as well.
So at what point did you think to yourself, he's not having any more? This child it is the vaccines.
Well, my second son was born in June of 97. And that was when they wanted to do the hepatitis B at birth. And I questioned that. I really pushed against doctors because I was already seeing the changes in my firstborn. I asked a lot of questions. I remember the doctor telling me that if my son ever was exposed to bloodborne pathogens, that it would protect him. I was just very wary by that time. So I declined it for my second born son. And then about, I guess, in 98, that's when I stopped everything. My second born son got RSV, and I was just extremely concerned because we didn't have any of that in our family. We have no asthma, no autism. We have no speech delays. And I'm probably a little fast forwarding, but at the age of 3, I had my firstborn son. His name is Houston, tested for speech. And he was by that time, age 3 in the 7th percentile. And he did not make eye contact, and went to his childcare, which was 2 hours a day. I worked part-time at that point, with a towel or a bucket on his head. He always wanted to cover his face. He hid under tables quite often for an hour at a time at school. It was just too much for him. So we knew something was wrong by that time.
Did you get a diagnosis? At what age?
So funny enough, I was in an office for myself. I was going to some therapy for some things I was going through, and the therapist noticed how I spoke to my son and said, we have a play therapist down the hall. You might want to look into some play therapy for him. And I started play therapy at age 4. The play therapist knew something wasn't right with him. And this was, I look back as a teacher, this was before we were seeing autistic children in our classrooms. I didn't understand exactly what my son was going through, but she knew something wasn't right with the sensory, lack of speech, extreme tantrums when something was off, even a spot that was wet on his shirt. So in working with him, by the time he was 8, he was definitely perseverating and counting things, lining up toys, memorizing every line to every movie you can imagine that was age appropriate for him. And he was diagnosed with OCD.
How is he doing now?
Yeah, so basically we started at age 3 with that play therapist, and we had 15 years until he was 18 of full therapy. I mean, he never left therapy. At age 10, he was diagnosed with PDD-NOS, pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified, which is the high functioning autism spectrum of the DSM-4. And then in 2009, when he was 14, we had 2 therapists rule out Asperger, and both therapists confirmed with a series of 2 hours of testing and all of the symptoms and his birth and milestones that he was Asperger syndrome, which is now under high functioning autism. Today, he's a classical pianist. He teaches children piano. He struggles incredibly with people skills. He's been fired a couple times from jobs, but he is an amazing pianist. Very proud of him.
Does he live independently?
He lives independently, but with guidance from us. I mean, we help him write all of his emails. We helped him go through the process of buying a home. He's a private music teacher, and he has some pretty high level students that pay him hourly. So he was able to save up a down payment, and then we helped him through the process of buying a home, which is incredible. This is not a typical outcome, but I think having an advocate for him throughout his high school years, having him on a 504 plan, constantly being in touch with his teachers and what was going on, we were able to help him be successful. There were lots of tragedies during those times, but overall it's come out to be a success.
So your other 2 children, did you vaccinate them?
Nope.
Not at all.
Not at all.
And do any of them have any of the issues that your firstborn son has?
My second and third children have never had a round of antibiotics, and they're ages 27 and 25. One is a volunteer firefighter, and then he works at a hospital, which he did through the pandemic. And it was the hill we were going to die on to not get a COVID vaccine, which we made it through. And then he's a security guard. And then my daughter is now a GI nurse. She's an endoscopic nurse, and she made it all the way through to school with a religious exemption, and never had to have a flu vaccine or a COVID vaccine. So completely healthy.
Okay, no health issues. And same father of the children?
All the same father, yes.
So you have a vax-unvax study in your home?
Exactly.
And so can you tell the viewers which is healthier, the vaccinated or the unvaccinated?
By far, unvaccinated. And so much less of a cost, easier on schooling, easier on how to guide them with growth and development, just miles different.
And what is your advice to the young mum watching now who's conflicted about whether to vaccinate her child, mother to mother?
If I could go back, I wish I could go back, but I would definitely say no, and say it respectfully, and say I'll wait. Sometimes pediatricians can handle it better if you say, I just want to wait. I'll wait. And then just keep waiting. Wait till they're 18.
Kristine, you work as a teacher in a school?
Yes. I actually tutor on the side. I just retired. A lot of the pandemic had its effect on me. I did not want to teach in a mask. I did not want to teach online. I was not afraid, of course. So I ended up retiring in 2022 from teaching.
And what have you seen with regards to autism over the years in the classroom?
Well, I started teaching in 1991. I'm 56 years old now, and I was 22 then. I don't think I saw any children that had speech disorders and regression, sensory disorders, hand flapping until 1998. In 1998 through about 05, we probably had 1 or 2 children per grade level. I taught in Chandler, Arizona, most of my career. So it wasn't a big problem back in the late 90s, early 2000s. From about 05 to 2015, it just exploded. Every school had autistic children at every grade level, and I was working during the Great Recession across 2 schools, writing ILLPs and doing the response to intervention, which is now called multi-tiered systems of support for children who are heading into special ed. So I was very exposed to children whose parents wanted them on an IEP, or they had special needs, or they had spectrumish behaviors, and where those kids fit in the system. It was just a long, hard fight to get them into the right place, into the system. By 2019, I had a class next door to my room where I ran 7 intervention groups every day from 8:10 to 2:40, a full autism spectrum room of 13 children next door to me. So we lovingly listened to all of the crazy, wonderful behaviors that they have. I was able to handle it because I can teach the children compassion for those kids. And we actually love to go in there and work with them, our reading groups. So it just exploded. It's going to be a tax on our education system for many years to come.
Kristine, thank you for doing this interview. And we're thrilled that your son is doing so well, because compared to the other stories, he is. And and you've given us a real facts on facts study. So I really appreciate you doing this interview. Is there any last words that you would like to add?
Oh, I just thank you for what you're doing. I've been watching this for probably about 5 years now. I love what you do, and I'm grateful I get to be part of it.
My name is Nicole, and this is Brandon.
And how old are you, Brandon?
I am 10 years old, and I'm about to be 11 years old.
What day is your birthday?
October the 7th.
How exciting.
Yeah.
So, why don't you tell us your
Okay.
story?
Brandon's our first, and of course, the new mom did everything the doctors told us to do. Read the books, searched for a pediatrician that I thought was going to be very supportive on breastfeeding. That was my main concern. Wanted some support with that. We went into the doctor, when we were supposed to, 2 months, 4 months. We would go, they would say, these are the shots that your child needs to get, this visit. And so I was like, okay, didn't do any research, trusted the doctor. Early on, he started having some skin problems. He would have eczema, he would have chronic diarrhea, constipation. It would fluctuate between the two. Every time I would ask the doctor about it, she would say, oh, it's normal, all babies have eczema. She would give us steroid cream to put on the eczema. She would give us shampoo, adult strength medicated shampoo to put on his head. Said it was all totally normal. When he got to 12 months, he had, luckily he didn't have the MMR at 12 months. He had everything else though at 12 months. So we had that. At 15 months, he had the MMR. After that, he stopped talking. He had been talking perfectly fine for a 12-month-old, 15-month-old. He had been saying a few words, mama, dada, puppy, things like that. Probably had about 10 word vocabulary at that point. At 15 months, he had the MMR. After that, all words were gone. His look in his eyes kind of went blank. He was not playing with his toys, the way that he should have. he got to where he couldn't handle loud noises, crowds. We would meet up play dates with, our local moms group, and he was pushing the chairs around the floor, and the other kids were playing, and he's pushing the chair around the floor, not wanting to participate with the other kids. We would do the little gym. I don't know if y'all are familiar with the little gym, but they do little gym classes. They get together and play and do things with them, and he did not want to play with the children, as they were doing their activities. He was on the other side of the room doing his own thing. He would get really easily frustrated with, like I said, with loud noises and crowds, and that happened pretty soon after the MMR. My mother was a teacher, and she started, showing some concern. She's like, I think he has autism. Hold on, sweetie. And you need to have him checked out. And I was like, he's fine. He's probably just being stubborn. He's a boy. I didn't have a boy before. I said I didn't know what I was doing. It's my first child, and I grew up with a sister, so I said I don't know what boys are all about. So I just assumed he was being stubborn, as did his dad, and so we said, well, we'll give him some time, kind of see what happens, and let me think timeline. So yeah, my mother kept saying, I think there's something wrong. So at 18 months, we started the process of early intervention. If they're under 3 years old, you contact early intervention, and they give you therapy and things like that if they need it. So they did the evaluation. They did not give him an autism diagnosis at the time. They said speech delay, receptive cognitive delay, expressive delay, various things like that, but not an actual autism diagnosis. So we started, I think it took about 2 months for the therapy to get lined up. So initially we started special instruction therapy, where they kind of teach them how to play. They basically just kind of show them how to play with puzzles, how to play with different toys. His first therapist, she said, I really think he needs some occupational therapy and some speech therapy, so we'll get him lined up with that as well. So we started that a few months later. So he was probably 2 before he started the speech and occupational therapy. So about that time is when I read Jenny McCarthy's first book, her Louder Than Words book, and I learned about Andy, and started learning about biomedical things. And hold on, sit right here, baby. So I learned about that, and I read her book, and I said, my son doesn't have autism, but I said, I see some similarities. So I said, if that worked for her child, then maybe it'll help mine, So of course I talked to my doctor about it, and she said, oh, there's no proof that vaccines, cause autism. There's no proof that diet changes help at all. So she was of no help whatsoever. So she, so basically at that point I was on my own. We had no doctors in this area that knew anything about it. The biggest help that I got was his allergy doctor. I said, I started looking into it, and I said, I think maybe he's got some food allergies. We started looking at some of the biomedical lab work that they do. And so I talked to his allergy doctor, and I said, would you help me research this? Would you help me look into the test? And he's like, well, I don't know anything about it, but he said, if we can find out some things from those tests, then we'll try that. So we got these tests back, and they were horrendous, and I had to do a lot of research on my own, trying to understand these tests, and it turned out he had a lot of food sensitivities. He had, of course, a lot of gut problems, yeast bacterial problems in his gut. So we did a lot of biomedical treatment based on that lab work, and by the time that he was about to turn 3, a couple months before he turned 3 years old, he said his first words. He added 25 words to his vocabulary in 1 weekend, and we were like, where's this coming from?
What do you specifically put that down to?
I specifically put that down to doing the biomedical. We pulled gluten, dairy,
right, so diet.
Those things, diet changes.
Billy started speaking when we pulled the milk. The
We
milk
did,
was
yeah.
the key.
We did one test that we did test to see if gluten and casein affect their brain like an opiate drug. And
did you send that to England, or was that done over here?
No, it was done over here.
Okay.
It was called the gluten casein peptide
Right,
test,
yeah,
is what they
I
call it.
remember.
Yeah. So his showed that dairy affects his brain like an opiate drug, and so so he accidentally got goldfish at church nursery one time, just a few months after we started.
Goldfish are the problem.
Horrible.
The bane in every
Yes.
parent's life.
And he used to eat them all the time. You know, yogurt, cheese. He loved his dairy, and so a few months after we started the diet, he got goldfish, and for a whole entire day he was completely spaced out for 3
So
weeks.
that's the gluten as well.
Mm-hmm. And for 3 weeks he was bouncing off the walls, could not sit still, could not focus.
So
that sort of thing.
how is he
Mhm.
now?
Now he's great.
I mean, he seems
He
great.
yeah.
Unbelievable.
He you know, he used to have tantrums, meltdowns when things wouldn't go his way. Now those are few and far between. It's usually we have more battles leading up to the full moon. Luckily right now it seems to be doing well. It just depends. So there are certain things that, you know, he's working to understand when things can't go his way, or can't finish something. Maybe he can finish it later. That kinds of thing. So we've done a lot of therapy. We've done a lot of biomedical stuff.
So do you go to school
Uh-huh.
and you enjoy it?
Yes, ma'am.
I do enjoy it.
And you got some friends?
My school is called Co-op, and I just got a new friend at baseball. His name is Cameron.
That's lovely.
We have a lot of local support around here with the autism community, the special needs community. So we have a lot of activities that they do. They do baseball. They do camp during the summer. It's a day camp, and they go, you know, all day, or they go for 4 hours a day for a week during the summer. So we have a lot of awesome support in this
So
area.
but going forward, does he have a medical exemption? Is he?
He did when we were doing school. It was hard to get. Make yourself comfortable, why don't you? Don't put your feet on her, baby. That's not
okay.
very nice.
We're going to go and sign the bus in a minute, so
yes.
you want to put your shoes back
Yes.
on again. We're literally going to go and sign the bus.
Yes. The initial exemption that we worked to get, the pediatrician that we were with was, you know, adamant that vaccines don't have anything to do with autism, and so she refused to help us. Luckily, be still, baby. Luckily, we found a doctor in Mississippi that understood what we were dealing with, and she worked to get us an exemption. The initial request that she sent in, it took us from July until April to get his exemption approved for his kindergarten year. Initially, she sent the request to the local health department, and the local health department doctor said that the doctor's concerns that she listed on the request were not valid, and that she needed to convince us to vaccinate him anyway. Now, he had everything up to that point, and his titers showed that he was immune to nearly everything that he needed anyway. So there was like 1 or 2 that he needed for kindergarten, and so she, you know, the doctor was like, "This is crazy." You know, I mean, the local health department doctor that does not know my child, knows nothing about his medical history, is trying to tell the doctor to convince us to give him more things that we don't know what it's going to do to him. You know, so anyway, the doctor sent the request again and said, you know, this child cannot have, you know, these shots. You are wiggle worm today. So they ended up granting it, and I understand the process is a little different now than what it was when we went through that. But so luckily that worked out for us. Later on we found out that that he has the MTHFR mutation. I started talking to some of the moms in the area who have kids on the spectrum and started learning about MTHFR after we lost our third child to late miscarriage, and found out I have it. And so I decided to test him as well. Turns out he's got it. So he's at about, from what I understand, I think he's at a 40% reduced ability to detox. So children with MTHFR should not have these vaccines anyway, and he had everything that he was supposed to have. We've got friends in this area that I know have it far worse than what we have had, so we've gotten lucky.
I have been in contact with many teachers who have witnessed the introduction of Wi-Fi in schools. And these teachers are telling me that since Wi-Fi was introduced, they have more problems with attention than before. We modify our environment. There are ways to do technology that is more respectful of human physiology.
Join 18 EMF experts from April 10 to 15 at the 2025 EMF Hazard Summit. Discover how to reduce risks from AirPods, smartphones, Wi-Fi, and other sources of EMF exposure. Your children and grandchildren are counting on you. To register, visit emfhazards.com.
Homeopathy was attracting the most well-known, well-respected literary greats, corporate leaders, and educated people.
The important part is, does the stuff work?
There is strong research evidence demonstrating it works, and yet nobody will believe it.
I wasn't really sure. I was skeptic. When I went to the doctor, he said to me, he goes, well, what are you taking? What are you doing? You're way, way better.
Homeopathy will effectively restore health rather than simply put a Band-Aid on their symptoms.
This is the medicine of the future. This is the medicine we've all been waiting for.
This is 21st century medicine.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.